the next part of the body that we're going to talk about is your torso. So this is obviously this section of your body. And we're going to talk about how that matters with regard to body language, because it matters a lot. And remember, when it comes down to it, everything with body language really is about being comfortable or uncomfortable. So how we present that is closed versus open. So we're going to get into some of the different things that apply to that in this section, and we'll just jump right in. So the torso is going to reflect the emotional truth a lot faster than most parts of the body, but it's still not the most honest. We're going to get to that later. As I said, that is the furthest away from your brain. So comfort's going to tend to expand the torso, and discomfort is going to tend to constrict it. So we'll start with something that's called torso or ventral fronting. And what that is when your chest and your midline are directly lined up with the person that you're talking to. So say you walk up to somebody in a conversation, you guys are both engaged, you're talking to each other, and your torsos are pointing towards each other. Now we're going to learn some interesting things about that particular scenario when we get to the feet, but just for the all intents and purposes of what we're talking about right now, that would signal engagement. So, and again, I want you to remember that, because, like I said, we're going to circle back around to that on where it might not signal engagement. But torso or full ventral fronting, it's good. It's openness, connection, interest, truth, attraction, all those things. We don't point our torso generally at things that we don't like. So keep that in mind. Now, partial fronting, this could be a sign of maybe disengagement a little bit. So that could be somebody turned slightly away from you, like that. This could be mixed interest. Maybe they're still evaluating, kind of pulling away. Maybe they just want to leave the conversation. Maybe they're done. So like one of the first things that I learned from body language was how to tell if somebody was, quite frankly, just finished talking to you. So, and the best way to tell that is just where their torso and where their feet are pointing, because that's going to kind of signal where they want to be. So you see a torso or a foot, well, like I said, we're going to get to that a little later, but pointing towards a doorway, you're probably going to want to wrap that conversation up. So just keep that in mind. Now, when the torso rotates completely away from a person, that's typically discomfort or disagreement, or just a desire to disengage. So if you see that you should, again, probably wrap that conversation up. So this is going to happen to the person more subconsciously, but they also kind of know, I'm finished with this conversation, I'm ready to move on. So leaning, you see this a lot in restaurants. You go to a nice steakhouse, you see a couple there in the corner table, they're both leaning into each other, maybe mirroring each other. That's called isopraxism, by the way, or mirroring, where your body language is the same as one another for the most part. But that's engagement. So when you're leaning towards each other, it's typically interest, curiosity, connection, attraction, or just agreement. So now, if one person's leaning in and then, suddenly you see the other person lean back, well, something might have happened there. Or if you see this in a circumstance that you're in, this could be doubt, discomfort, disagreement, just emotional distancing. So not necessarily anything to worry about, but it is something to kind of keep an eye on. Open versus closed torso. So this is, as I had said, everything comes down to if you're comfortable or uncomfortable in a situation, in a scenario. So if your torso is open, and this could look like your chest exposed, your shoulders relaxed, no shielding objects, this is comfort, confidence, this is psychological safety. So when the limbic system feels safe, it's going to expose the vulnerable areas. And again, we had talked about those. So that's right here. That could be your brachial artery here, or right here on the inside of your wrist. That's your belly, because your ribs are exposing, or your soft, the part underneath your ribs rather, is exposed. So, if someone's leaning forward to protect that, and this is a different sort of leaning forward, but you see suddenly somebody kind of hunched over there, well, that's protecting that vulnerable area. So, some other things to look out for with this: elbows open versus elbows closed. So, typically when we're comfortable, we're going to take up more space. So you're going to see that on at a table. Usually, if you're in a boardroom or a meeting, the person of the highest status is going to generally take up the most space. They might go like this. And this kind of signifies I'm superior in this room. I own this scenario here. Or they might just take up a couple chairs, spread their stuff out, so like that they're comfortable in that scenario is what I'm getting to. So if you see somebody that's like that, and then suddenly their elbows go in, protecting their brachial artery again, that's discomfort. Something just happened there. So pay attention to elbows, as they do tell a lot. How you hold a drink matters. You see somebody, you're going to see this a lot in bars or maybe at company events where there's that awkwardness of social interaction where people are holding a drink. You're holding the drink and it's in crossing your midline. You're blocking that section of the body. So another thing you might see is that turned inward like that, where the best place, in my opinion, to hold a drink is kind of down by your side. You want to project this type of body language as well as read it. So you want to project confident and comfortable body language. So a good way to do that is if you're in a room in a situation like that, stand up, spread out, spread your feet out. That's called splaying, by the way, but not overly so where you're like, you see this with police officers where they splay out and they're like this and they got their legs spread out and taking up space and like, I'm in charge here. So you don't want to give that off, but it's somewhere in between that and just completely closed off. But your drink, hold it down by your side, or out to your side, but you want to try and leave this area of your torso open, because that's going to project comfort. And again, the people that are in there with, or that you're interacting with, their limbic system is reading your body language. They might not know it, but they do know it. So their body knows it. So keep that in mind. Contracted torso, like I said, you might see somebody who suddenly is like, and you can even feel this if you put your hands under your rib cage. If you kind of hunch forward a little bit like that, it's going to give more protection to that vulnerable area in your belly. So that would be creating a barrier. We call that a barrier. Barriers in body language are something that you're going to see a lot, and that's anything that's in between you and the other person. So some other examples of barriers, actually, while we're on that subject, if you're at a table on a date or at a meeting or something like that, and you put the menu in front of you or a drink in front of you or something like that. Ideally, in an ideal situation, you don't want any barriers between you and the person that's sitting across from you. So if you're sitting at a table like that, maybe this is an important meeting, maybe it's a date, you really like this person. A lot of times we'll find we do this unconsciously, where we'll move that barrier out of the way. So like you'll pull that drink off to the side, or that menu, or maybe that candle that's in that center of the table off to the side. But again, it all comes down to just exposing the torso as far as that goes. So you could think of these as like a shield, and when discomfort arises, you're gonna have more of a shield. So you're going to hold that drink like this, or you'll see like college students where they hold books like this, like they're protecting themselves. Another thing is called a self hug. So a self hug, there's a couple different things we should talk about with this, actually. Crossed arms. We'll start with crossed arms, actually. There's a couple different ways you can cross your arms, and they don't necessarily mean that a person is closed off like most people think. So crossing your arms like this, like generally it's comfortable to do. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean a person's closed off or anything. So when you want to pay attention is when you see their hand tighten up. Well, maybe something happened there. So that's more of a stress indicator. Another thing is this is really just kind of a self hug. This is just a pacifying gesture. It's comfortable. You might be feel socially awkward, and you stand like this because in this case you are blocking. So Another thing you'll see with females, well, they'll go like this. What they're doing is they're protecting this part of their body, and their other hand is down here protecting another part. Men will generally hold, and this is called a fig leaf, I believe. They'll hold their hands down in front of their area down there. That's high discomfort when you see that, and same with the female one. So those are some high discomfort gestures that you're going to want to keep a lookout for. Collar, neck venting, I believe we talked about this already, but I'll just kind of recap it a little bit. So venting is when you are uncomfortable, you tend to build up heat, especially back here. So this is rising tension or emotional discomfort. You might see that with, going like this or like that, or maybe fixing your tie. Female might flip their hair back. Those are things that signify discomfort as well. Freeze, flight, or fight. Again, that's also very important for this. So maybe in the torso with freeze, you see sudden stillness, maybe a rigid upper body, shallow breathing. And again, and actually with breathing, you're breathing. A person should be breathing from their belly. You generally won't see it right here. If you see chest breathing, it looks more like up and down. Well, that's discomfort. So that's a good cue to look out for in the torso as well. Flight might be the torso angling away. So once again, this is like this. Or maybe you see a couple and they're sitting next to each other on anywhere, a movie, an airplane, and they're, the ones over on this side and you're leaning like this. Well, that's disengagement. So you see them leaning towards each other. Well, that means the opposite. So that would be flight. Your upper body is shifting away from that person, and this is emotional withdrawal or the desire to escape that interaction. Fight. Your torso might square up, your chest expands, your shoulders broaden, you just look tighter. That's kind of a readiness to confront or defend a position. So mixed signals with the torso and the face. Again, the further away from the brain that we talked about, the further away from the brain that a gesture happens, that's going to be what you're going to want to rely on. That's the more truthful part of, or the more truthful indicator rather. So a face might smile, but the torso turns away. Well, that's being polite, but they're not comfortable maybe. Words say yes, but the torso leans back. Well, that might be internal hesitation, or it might be disagreement. A neutral face, but the torso is fully fronted and leaned in. That could be engagement, real engagement. So some real world scenarios, you're say networking, you're at a social event or a company event or something like that, and you see open torsos and open elbows and a person's holding their drink off to their side. They're very comfortable. That's how you want to walk into a room. That's how you want to present yourself when you're at a thing like that. So, and this is another thing too, that we talked about turtling, but that would fall probably into the torso as well. But so shoulders down, open body language, relaxed. Those are things you want to look for. In dating, it might be torsos facing each other and leaning in. That's going to be attraction. But maybe the torsos retreat and the elbows suddenly tuck, or the hands go underneath the table, or that's going to be probably declining interest. Maybe you're in a difficult conversation and it's a sensitive topic and you see the elbows pull in. Maybe shields start to appear. They grab their phone, they put it in front of you. They grab a drink, they put it on the table in front of you. Their torso leans back. Those are things to look out for there. Now, you want to, in all cases, if you're trying to make somebody comfortable, or you're on a date or something like that, you want those barriers removed. So, but you never want to call them out. So you want to do that in such a way that it's not creepy, because what you're doing is, this is, let's call it what it is. And I had said this before and I'll say it again, but reading body language is creepy, but you're not doing this, at least I hope not, to manipulate another person. You're doing this to enhance your own communication. So if you're trying to remove barriers, maybe a good way to do that, if you're on a date or at a table in a restaurant, you could just reach the menu, maybe slide your glass aside casually, but reach the menu over. Hey, look at this, check this out. Or your phone, oh, look at this picture. And then you just want to get those barriers out of the way. Same thing with barriers on them. If they're crossing their arms, like, or, maybe they're doing this self hug. Well, hand them something to get that barrier out of the way. So, but yeah, key takeaways. I mean, the torso is going to tell you someone's emotional direction, whether they're moving towards you or away from you. It's going to tell you whether they're comfortable or not in the scenario. So, open body language, relaxed torso, relaxed shoulders, shoulders back, like that sort of thing. Like that's good. That's what you're going for here. But closed, turned, shielded, leaning back, that's retreat.